Have you ever been invisible? So invisible that people look right through you until the moment you touch something they thought was theirs alone. She spent her life cleaning after others, but today, she was about to clean a wound no one could see. Her fingers moved across the paper like they were reading a heartbeat. It was 5:47 a.m. in the executive boardroom of Carter Holdings, Seattle. The city still slept behind rain-streaked glass. Lydia Brooks, 28, petite, light brown hair, pulled into a careful bun, warm eyes that rarely met anyone's gaze, pushed her cleaning cart between leather chairs. This shy girl had learned early that being unnoticed was safer than being seen. She wasn't supposed to touch the desks. But there it was, a single sheet of paper, ivory-colored, lying near the CEO's chair. Not printed. Raised dots catching the dim overhead light. Braille. Her breath caught. She glanced at the door. Empty hallway. Her mother's voice whispered in her memory, "Your hands can see what eyes cannot, darling." Slowly, Lydia set down her spray bottle. Her fingertips hovered, then descended. The dots formed words beneath her touch, soft as prayer. When you stop feeling, you stop living. She froze. This wasn't a memo. This was a wound. Behind the tinted glass wall of the adjoining office, a shadow shifted. Evan Carter, 34, cool, composed gray suit, perfectly pressed, stood perfectly still, watching. His jaw tightened. She read my late wife's letter, a cleaner. Lydia didn't see him. She carefully placed the paper back exactly where it had been. Her hands trembled as she picked up the spray bottle again, as if she'd touched something sacred she had no right to hold. This heartwarming moment of respect unknown to her would change everything. She looked up one last time, the room still empty, and disappeared into the hallway, her cartwheels squeaking softly against marble floors. Evan remained in shadow, his frown deepening as he watched her go. What he'd just witnessed was nothing short of inspirational, a stranger treating his deepest pain with reverence. What hidden past connects a shy girl's gentle touch to a CEO's deepest grief? Lydia's apartment was a study in smallness. One room, a kitchenette, a window facing a brick wall. But on the wall beside her bed hung a wooden plaque, its surface carved with raised dots. Braille. I see you even when I can't. Her mother's words. She touched it every night before sleeping like a ritual. Mrs. Reed had been gone 3 years now, heart disease, sudden and merciless. But Lydia still felt her everywhere. In the careful way she folded towels, in the quiet way she moved through the world, trying not to be noticed. Her mother had lost her vision at 45. Instead of retreating into bitterness, she'd learned to see through touch, through sound, through love. And Lydia had learned Braille so they could write to each other, so her mother wouldn't feel so alone in the dark. It had been the most inspirational period of her life, even as she watched her mother fade. You have a gift, her mother used to say, running her fingers over Lydia's notes. Tita, don't hide it just because the world doesn't notice. Voiceover invisible but capable, she carried a gift no one noticed. But the world had never noticed this shy girl. Not in high school where she ate lunch alone. Not in college, which she'd left after one semester when the money ran out. Not in the office building where she cleaned invisible as air. The next morning, she arrived at Carter Holdings at 5:30 a.m., her usual time. The lobby was still dim, but one light was always on the security desk, where Mr. Dennis Hale sat with his coffee and his worn paperback. "Morning, Lydia," he said warmly. 62 silver hair eyes that actually saw people. "You're looking thoughtful today." She managed a small smile. "Just tired, Mr. Dennis." Tired or troubled, there's a difference. He poured her a cup from his thermos, something he'd done every morning for 2 years. "You know, my wife used to say the quietest people carry the loudest truths." Lydia wrapped her hands around the warm cup. I'm just a cleaner, sir. I don't carry anything important. That's where you're wrong. He leaned back in his chair. I've watched a lot of people come through these doors. The ones who strut in with their briefcases and their titles. Half of them are empty inside. But you, he smiled gently. You notice things. You care. That's not nothing. You don't need to hide your gift, Lydia, Mr. Dennis added softly. The smallest thing can be remembered forever. Lydia smiled faintly. Who would care what a cleaner can do? She wanted to believe him, but caring had never changed her station. Upstairs, the executive floor hummed with controlled ambition. Evan Carter's office occupied the northwest corner, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, a desk clear of clutter except for one locked drawer. Inside that drawer, 17 letters in Braille, all from his wife, Natalie. Written after the car accident that left her blind, written during the 2 years they'd fought together, hoping, praying. Written until the illness came and hope became something smaller, sharper. He hadn't opened the last letter. Couldn't. It had been sitting in that drawer for 18 months. Mr. Carter, Harper Lynn. His assistant appeared in the doorway. 32 sharp, blazer-sharper eyes, pragmatic to the point of coldness. The presentation for the Westbrook merger is ready. I've arranged the Braille materials for their visually impaired partner, Mr. Chen. Evan nodded. Conference room B, 30 minutes. Harper hesitated. Sir, about the new cleaning schedule, I've noticed the morning cleaner has been lingering near your desk. Lingering. Touching things. Papers. I think we should address it. Evan's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. I'll handle it. 28 minutes later, conference room B filled with executives in tailored suits and rehearsed confidence. Evan stood at the head of the table, his presentation crisp and emotionless, exactly what they expected from him. Since Natalie's death, he'd become a machine. Efficient, untouchable. Harper distributed folders with practiced efficiency. When she reached Mr. Chen's materials, she stopped. Her face paled. These were supposed to be in Braille format. There's been an error, these are just standard printed pages. Silence dropped like a stone. Mr. Chen, a dignified man in his 60s with kind eyes behind dark glasses, tapped his cane lightly against the table leg. Perhaps someone could read them aloud? I apologize for the confusion, Evan said, his voice flat as winter. We'll need to reschedule. Actually, the door opened. Lydia stood there, one hand on her cleaning cart, eyes wide with hesitation. She'd been working in the adjacent hallway, had heard the commotion. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I could try, if it helps. Every head turned. Harper's laugh was cold, dismissive. You're a cleaner, not an interpreter. Evan's gaze fixed on Lydia. Something in her posture, nervous but determined, reminded him of Natalie, of courage wrapped in humility. Let her try, he said quietly. Lydia's hands shook as she approached the table. Mr. Chen handed her the documents with a gentle smile. They were in Braille after all, just mixed into the wrong stack. She touched the first page. Her fingers found the rhythm she'd learned at her mother's bedside in those last sacred months. Her voice was soft but steady, clear. She read the merger terms, the financial projections, the timeline, every word accurate and fluid. When she finished, the room held its breath. Mr. Chen's face lit with genuine warmth. You read beautifully, my dear. Where did you learn from my mother, sir? She lost her vision, so I learned to be her eyes. Something cracked in Evan's chest. Just a hairline fracture, but he felt it. The energy in the room shifted. People were looking at Lydia differently now, not as the cleaner, but as someone who mattered. This heartwarming display of hidden talent was changing perceptions in real time. Evan's gaze deepened as he watched her. Who is this woman? Could one small act of service unlock a door that grief had sealed shut? By afternoon, Harper had reviewed the security footage. She found Lydia at the CEO's desk that morning touching the paper, found her near the private office, found her in Harper's mind exactly where she didn't belong. "Mr. Carter, we have a situation." Harper entered his office, her tablet thrust forward. "The cleaner. She's been accessing your desk. This morning, 5:47 a.m., she touched documents." Evan studied the footage. Lydia's gentle hands on the Braille letter, her careful replacement of it, her quick exit as if ashamed. "She didn't take anything," he observed quietly. "How can you be certain she could be copying information for competitors?" "Sir, she's a cleaner with access to your private workspace. That's a significant security risk." Evan's fingers drummed once on his desk. Natalie had taught him to read body language after she lost her sight. She'd had to learn to hear truth in voices and breathing patterns. He'd learned from her, and what he saw in that footage wasn't greed. It was reverence. "Set up a test," he said. "Sir, leave a document, Braille, sensitive-looking content. Place it in the boardroom tonight. I want to observe what she does." Harper smiled. "Of course." That night, Evan and Harper waited in the monitoring room. The clock read 5:52 a.m. Lydia entered the boardroom on schedule, pushing her cart with its familiar squeak. The document sat on the center of the table. Thick paper, official-looking header, Braille dots carefully arranged. It read, "Confidential Carter Holdings Acquisition Target Meridian Industries. Price point $47. Unauthorized disclosure will result in legal action." Entirely fabricated, but convincing. Lydia saw the paper. Her cleaning rag slowed. She glanced around the empty room, then approached. Her fingers touched the first line. Evan leaned forward, watching intently. Lydia read 3 words, then stopped. Her hand pulled back like she'd touched fire. She stood there staring at the paper, then shook her head softly. "This is private," she whispered to the empty room. "I shouldn't read it." She placed the paper back in its exact position, smoothed her hand over it once, almost apologetically, and walked away, returning to her cart. Harper exhaled in frustration. "She didn't take the bait." "No," Evan said softly, something shifting in his expression. "She passed the test." "That doesn't prove anything?" "It proves she has integrity." Evan's voice was firm now. "Someone who recognizes boundaries might also know how to keep confidences. Leave it, Harper." But Harper couldn't leave it. Over the next 2 days, she began building a case. Minor infractions. Times Lydia's cart had been near executive spaces. Conversations overheard. None of it substantial, but enough to paint a picture of suspicion. On Thursday morning, Lydia was called into a small HR office. Harper sat across from her. A file folder open, her expression cold and professional. "Miss Brooks, we've received concerns about your conduct, specifically accessing areas beyond your assignment and handling sensitive materials." Lydia's face went pale. I was just cleaning." "You were observed touching documents on Mr. Carter's desk." "It was Braille. I thought someone had dropped it. I only wanted to place it back properly." Harper's smile was thin, almost triumphant. "Unfortunately, that's not your decision to make. You're being placed on suspension pending investigation." Lydia's eyes filled. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself, just nodded and stood, her hands folded in front of her like a child being dismissed from school. This shy girl who'd only ever tried to help was being punished for kindness. She left the building in a daze. Mr. Dennis caught her in the lobby, concern etched deep in his weathered face.